and welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel Fogelman. My guest this week is Lindsay Krause. The Oscar, Emmy, and Grammy nominated actress has had a wonderful career. But to me, she'll always be Lily Braden, Ned Braden's wife for Slapshot. We discussed the movie, the practical jokes on set by Paul Newman, and which member of the Charlestown Chiefs actually came to her hotel door nude. That's right, nude. Not like that at all, but it's a great story. She received the Best Supporting Actress Oscar nomination for her role in Places in the Heart, starring Sally Field. Sally won the Best Actress award that year. Lindsay talks about her very memorable Oscar experience, and we also talk about The Verdict, written by her then husband David Mamet, one of the greatest courtroom movies of all time, also starring Paul Newman. We discussed that, as well as the final courtroom scene that David was having a little bit of an issue finishing. Lindsay kind of helped him out a little bit there. David also wrote and directed Lindsay in House of Games. Roger Ebert called it the best movie of 1987. It is great. It's really good. We discussed some of her other roles, as well as why Hollywood kind of turns a blind eye to actresses in their later years, which is unfortunate because they all give great performances, including Lindsay. Lindsay was a little bit under the weather when we recorded this, so I really thanked her for her time. Really enjoyed my conversation with Lindsay, and I hope you do as well. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah. So, what are you up to these days?
Well, let's see. I live in Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is a very beautiful place. I'm a big gardener. I do sermons at my wonderful local church, and I wait to see what the entertainment business wishes to do with me.
Right.
The age that I am now, I have a wonderful local theater here, the Gloucester Stage, where I work, and we get to do a lot of fun projects.
Right. Is like theater always been like, I know you've done movies and television, but is theater like really your first love?
It is.
Yeah.
Theater is my first love. There is nothing like being in front of a live audience. I mean, I love making movies. I love being on television. It's fun. It's different, but theater is in my blood. My father was a playwright, so it kind of came with the territory.
Right. So this was like you had to do this profession, right? There was no turning, right? It was being born
Oh,
into
not
it.
do it? No. Yeah, it wasn't like I had to do it. No, I started out wanting to be a dancer,
Okay.
and I did that for a while, and then I realized um, dancing is uniquely different because if you work with a choreographer, you do that person's work.
Right.
And as someone who was well educated and interested in the world in all kinds of ways, it's not that I didn't love working for a particular choreographer, I did, but I felt it just wasn't kind of broad enough. So I felt a little bit isolated that way.
Right.
And I found I wanted to speak.
Okay. Was it ever a time that you wanted to write like your own screenplays and stuff like that?
No,
No.
no, I know too much about how hard it is to write a good
Right.
play and a screenplay. When people say I have a screenplay, I go, good luck.
Good. Yeah.
There is an art to it.
Right.
So, um, my brother is a writer.
Yeah.
I'm the one who runs around doing things. He sits in a chair and writes.
Right. Next, I imagine, like you said, everyone has a screenplay, and I guess everyone has a podcast now, so it's pretty much this the same pretty much. But when like did you first get on stage? Like how old are you? Like
I
when?
was 7 years old,
Okay,
and I remember it so distinctly. We had an opportunity in second grade to do the Christmas play at our school. And of course, everybody wanted to be the Madonna, but the Madonna was taken by a girl named Connie Pike, who was the daughter of Bishop Pike, who was Bishop of Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York. Connie looked like the Madonna. Her face was long. She had dark hair. So we're all jealous of Connie. She got to be the Madonna. And then Elizabeth Slattery, who had lovely blonde, sort of wavy hair, she got to be Gabriel. So the big parts were taken. So I was a shepherd. But
Okay.
what I remember distinctly was I remember where I was in the school
Hmm.
auditorium, leaning against a fake rock with my crook. And my friend Liz Slattery, who was Gabriel, walked on stage. And I went like this. Now, no one told me to do that.
Right.
Something in my little 7-year-old imagination said, well, if Gabriel's an angel, she's bright.
Yeah.
That's this. And I thought about it years afterwards that the enjoyment and investment of a 7-year-old in that story never left me.
Right.
That was what I considered the beginning
Yeah.
of love of being in the theater.
I mean, it shows you, like, I guess it was in your genes that you can improvise like that, being in such a young age, and I'm sure they love that.
Sorry, I'm moving myself around. Yeah, it's the life of the imagination that thrills me. So yeah, I think it was just a very young and active imagination.
Yeah. And having like such like a legendary family, did you look to them, for advice, constructive criticism, or did they give it to you?
Because I was so young, I remember my father died when I was 16.
Okay.
He was an older man. He was 75 when he died, and I was 16. And I remember being in a play up here in Gloucester, um, a very simple play. And I remember the next morning his saying to me, he said something nice about my being in the play, and then he said, "Do you think you'd ever be interested in doing this?" And I was so
Mm.
surprised by the question that I said something like, "I don't know. Never thought of that." Um, but what stayed with me was the fact that he asked it, that to me he saw something.
Right.
And I have kept that memory and held it very close to my heart. That at times, if I was discouraged or whatever, I would remember him saying that and thinking my father would never have asked me that if he really wanted to. Oh, I know what he said afterwards now. I
Mm.
remember. Yeah, I said, I don't know. And he said, it's a dirty profession.
Hmm.
No, it's a dirty business, he said. It's a
Right.
dirty business. Yeah. And I thought, he's protecting me, but he sees something.
Mm.
And so later on, I remembered that and I thought, well, if he saw something, I should keep going.
Mm. Was there ever a time in your career when the dirty profession came out and then you kind of like remembered your father's words and just like he was right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do now actually, because at the age that I am, there's just no work at all. And there's nothing written.
Yeah.
There's very little written for women as they get older in this profession, which is something that really needs to be changed.
Mm.
Because I sit here realizing, well, I do have something to say now that I've lived an entire life. And I think that I know a few things. It
Yeah.
would be really interesting to offer them.
Why do you feel that's the way?
People don't want to look at older women. They don't want to look at
Okay.
older women. In England, it's such a different thing. They love their older women.
Right.
They cherish their authority, their wisdom, and their sense of humor about life. I mean, look at Maggie Smith, Judy
Yeah.
Dench. They write for them,
Right.
and rightly so. Here, because of our standard of beauty and everything having to look just perfect, etc. No, women are a little in the discard pile in the film industry. Yeah, unless you mean money, unless
Mhm.
you're over the title or you mean money,
Right.
you can bring business into the European or Eastern market or something like that.
Mm. That's a shame, because there are so many amazing actresses,
There
and
are.
that you don't see them after a certain time, and it's a shame.
It's
It
really
it,
true.
it really
Mhm.
is. Now
Mhm.
you recently came back with Chantilly Bridge, which is sequel to Chantilly Lace. Was that the only reason why you got particular that role because they made the sequel?
Um, yeah, it was a wonderful group of women who loved making the first movie.
Right.
Linda Yellen very sweetly said, "Let's get together again after all these years and let's see what happens." So that's why we made that movie. And
Yeah.
we were so happy to see each other.
Right.
And we talked about this very subject, all of us,
Yeah.
saying we're kind of in the discard pile. It's such a shame because we just love to be out there again. And it was wonderful to be with each other because often women are not cast together,
Yeah.
right? So it was a love fest. We had a great time.
Right. Oh no, that's great. Were there any character or actresses that didn't want to come back that had to be like persuaded, or everyone was more than
No,
welcome?
we jumped on
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Yeah.
that's
We
great.
wanted to be, again, we never get to act with each other and we wanted to
Yeah,
be with each other.
right. Was it since that movie, have you had any other like offers or anything like that, or no?
Um, I've had a couple for series, but series which I would have loved to have done, but
Yeah,
series are being shot in places like Vancouver now, because of the
yeah.
economics.
Right, of course.
And so if you sign on to a series, you don't know if you're going to be there for a year or 10 years
Yeah,
or whatever. And I don't live in Vancouver, so it
yeah,
was a little hard
exactly.
to say
Right.
yes.
Pretty far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts like about now with like all the the streaming sites and now is more you can say there's more work for actors now, but do you feel that way?
I don't really know a lot about streaming sites. I mean, I'm always championing opportunities for actors.
Right.
So, yeah, the whole business has changed so incredibly much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, poor actors.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
not enough work to go around. So,
Yeah. You can say there's more opportunities, but they seem to, I guess, hire the same people over and over again, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I first saw you, I'm sure this is something you've heard a lot, Slapshot. I absolutely, love
Oh, what a great movie.
it's so much fun. And you have one of I think the best lines in the entire movie. You're sitting with Paul Newman on the bench with the dog, and it's like, that dog saved, Charleston from the fire or the flood. Well, fuck them, Just you
Fuck
were so
him.
angry in that movie. It was fantastic. How much fun was that, and how much like just working with Paul Newman and stuff like that?
Well, I was able to do it a couple of times and it
Yeah.
was wonderful. What a wonderful man. And he was a big practical joker. He said you can play a joke on anybody in this film except for my wife if she's visiting me. That's off limits.
Right.
We decided one day we all got together with him and we were shooting him driving very fast down a street and then around a corner and doing a wheelie around the corner. So it was he was doing his own stunts.
Yeah.
So he and George Roy Hill were old friends. So he got the crew and the cast together, and we were all around the end of that street so that we were out of sight at George Roy Hill. And we had glass, we had old pieces of cars, we had metal cans, we had all these things. So he goes careening around the corner and we all hurl the glass and make noise with the cans and we had all these noise makers. It sounded as though he had absolutely devastated the car and was probably no longer alive.
Right.
Joy Hill, according to the crew, turned completely white. He went racing down the street and we were all mooning him.
That's great.
So Paul was always up to something.
Right. That's awesome. So I'm assuming that you weren't doing your own driving stunts too, like driving the van, right?
I was in the van with him when he was driving.
Okay.
Yeah, many times. But I trusted him as a driver. He was a
Right.
superb driver.
Yeah. Did you ever ice skate like during the filming of the movie or no?
Oh, I was on the ice all the time because
Okay.
that's where it was all happening. It was really fun.
Yeah.
The first day, very charming French actor. I think his name was Yvon Pont. I can't remember Yvon was his name. Anyway, he was the goalie and
Yeah.
he caught a puck in his knee.
Okay.
So they had to move away from filming him for a week, and he was in the room opposite me in the Sheraton Hotel in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And he was very dramatic, and with a wonderful French accent. So he said to me as we were headed towards the evening, he said, "Oh, Lindsay, Lindsay," he says, "I am in so much pain. Please, you help me. I don't think I can use the bathroom by myself." So in the middle of the night, I hear, "Lindsay, Lindsay, please come." And here he is standing in his doorway, stark naked, asking me to help him to the bathroom. There were all kinds of crazy things that happened on that movie.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, and it's amazing how the Hanson brothers still they are
Oh, yeah.
like still relevant. You know, every minor league
Yes.
game. I know one of them was sick recently, pretty sick, but they go out there and they embrace it still, and it's amazing. The movie is still has legs after all these years. It's one of the best sports movies of all time.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's a
Yeah,
wonderful movie.
yeah,
It had trouble in the Midwest, I heard, because people were a little uptight. They didn't want to see Paul Newman playing that role.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it found its success later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned working with, I mean, like, The Verdict is, I love that movie. It's one of the best, I think, best movies, not only the 80s of all time, one
Yeah.
of the best horror movies. It is fantastic. He was amazing. I know David Mamet, your ex-husband, wrote the original
Right.
screenplay, and I guess the ending was a little different, right? He wrote a different ending at first,
Um,
or they
no,
weren't going to like
no,
show the actual verdict,
but
I
it,
think, right?
it was a classic story with a studio where he submitted the script and they wanted him to change it. They wanted him to put back the Chinese girlfriend and the dog and the whatever. I mean, sometimes studio executives don't quite understand how lean a movie script has to be. You
Right.
can't put in everything that was in the novel,
Yeah.
only what's relative to the aspect of the story that you've
Right.
pulled out of the novel. But I remember a very poignant moment when David was writing it. We were renovating a house, an old rundown farmhouse in Vermont, and we were staying in Montpelier in a old hotel. And he was at his typewriter, his manual typewriter, writing the movie.
Yeah.
And he got up, he tossed a piece of paper on the bed, and he said, "This is um, the last speech. Take a look. I don't know what I did." So I looked at it and I said to him, I said, "David, you're afraid of this speech. I know because you're using very, very big words.
Okay.
When you're frightened, you use very big words that maybe nobody would understand."
Mm.
I said, "This speech, you have to remember this man, his life is over. It's done. It's like the movie's done.
Right.
His life is over.
Mm.
There's nowhere else to go. This speech is like a prayer or like something that comes unbidden out of the unconscious, a plea, um, and a declaration by a man whose life is about to end. A declaration of who he is. You have to go back and you're going to have to pay the price. You're going to have to wait
Mm.
for it to come. This is not going to come from you." He sat at that
Yeah.
typewriter for a long time,
Wow.
and out of it came that speech, which I think is absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean,
And I think Paul delivered it
oh,
with such
yeah.
grace and humility. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the way he was sitting in the chair, kind of like slumped down, and then he just got up and it just like it was like an epiphany. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the speech came out. I mean, if he wasn't getting nominated for the Oscar before that, the speech solidified it, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. And just the whole cast, I mean, it was so
Yeah.
beautifully cast. It was such,
That was Sidney Lumet's repertory company. He
okay,
cast
yeah,
those people many times in his movies, and he
right,
he trusted them and loved them. He was a great director. Great director.
yeah,
I loved him very much.
right. And yeah, and it was, you were like, and you came on late in the movie, but it was like you were the most important character of the movie.
It was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I had a great vocal coach that I worked with for 40 years,
Well, okay.
and she was an extraordinary coach. She'd coached so many wonderful actors. She'd coached political leaders. She was someone who knew a lot about life. And she coached me for this, and it was originally written as an Italian girl,
Okay.
hence the last name Costello.
Yeah.
And she said, when I brought her the script, she said, "No, Lindsay, this has to be an Irish nurse." She said, Irish nurse is the quintessential nurse."
In
And
Boston
when,
too.
yeah, when my mother was ill and dying, the five nurses that we had rotating, taking care of her were all Irish. And I told
Yeah.
them, I said, this is what my voice coach told me was that the essential
Yeah.
nurse is an Irish nurse. Kudos to all nurses, by the way, but I'm telling the
Absolutely.
story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought up about the vocal coach because I was going to ask you like if accents are easy for you. But apparently, I mean, you just did the French one talking about slap
Yeah.
shots. So I think it comes
They are
natural now,
easy,
right?
and I've had the great good fortune to have parts where I could use them. They come easy. I love it. They come
Hmm.
easily to me,
Yeah.
but I think I'm able to do them because of this incredible coach.
Yeah. Is there one that's been like completely like difficult for you to kind of grasp?
Difficult. Sometimes a French accent is difficult because you think you know how to do it and you
Mhm.
don't.
Right.
So your own arrogance gets in the way.
Yeah. Right. Now, you got nominated obviously for Best Supporting Actress, Places in the Heart, and it's a very powerful movie. Speaking of great cast, I mean, they're
Oh my God.
amazing actors. I'm still discovering actors to this day. I'm like, oh my God, this person's in it. I had Toni Hudson on a couple years ago, and
Oh.
she had a great part in that movie too. When you get nominated for an Oscar, like where were you? Do you remember the feeling and just the nerves going into that night? Just talk about the whole
Mhm.
experience for you.
Um, when I was at the Academy Awards that night, I tried to dress up and I wore a dress that was basically like a black stocking. It had lots of little sequins all over it.
Right.
So when I sat down and I realized that the auditorium was air conditioned, I was freezing cold. And that's the biggest thing I remember about the Academy Awards that night. I was
Right.
like literally. The other thing I remember about it was there was someone sitting next to me who was not moving. The person was in a black cape with a hood that was lined with kind of royal purple, and I could barely see the tip of their nose. And I was nervous and I was talking to people and I was being friendly. So I sort of ducked down like this and I
Yeah.
went, "Hi." And he looked up, it was Prince.
Oh my. Oh.
Hi.
Hi. Did he say anything to you or just hello
He
back?
didn't say a thing. Yes. And who could blame him?
That's funny.
Like this maniac next to me.
Oh my God. That's so funny. Oh yeah, 'cause I guess he would have been there for Purple Rain, right? Getting nominated for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. And that's when Sally gave her like acceptance speech, right?
Yeah.
You like me, you really like me,
Yeah.
right? That's the
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Yeah. Has there been an actor, not if being in awe of the actor itself, but just in awe of their performance?
I love Alec Guinness,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
British actor. I love Alec Guinness. I love Paul's performances, Paul Newman's
Yeah.
performances. Who else do I love? I mean, I'm a person who really loves actors. I don't sort of think of favorites really. I've learned a lot from actors who are not well known,
Okay.
too. So yeah, yeah. But Paul is one of my favorites, one of my very
Right.
favorite.
Yeah. Did like Paul change from Slapshot to The Verdict, or he was still the same guy?
Same guy,
Yeah.
same guy. He had, because there is a cult of personality, especially with big stars.
Yeah.
Um, I find often there's a kind of stamp to them as who they are.
Mm.
But I think Paul, if you look at Paul's early films and television roles, etc., he always plays the role very truthfully. And in that way, a character emerges. He's not really a
Mm,
character actor in that way.
right.
He's a true leading man. Um, but I've always find him credible and extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah, he's totally believable, and I think in anything he does, it's he had an amazing career. Now, was
He,
he? I'm
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, you first. Yeah,
He's something very generous to me. Um, during the shooting, there was a scene. What was it? What were we shooting? I guess it was Slapshot. Yeah. There was a scene where it was sort of getting on towards evening, and I had started to cry in the car with him.
yeah,
And they cut and they said, "We're losing the light. We're going to pick it up at 4 in the morning, right? So get sunrise, same kind of light." So now you're at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're in the car and you're freezing cold and you haven't had any breakfast and you're like, "I'm crying."
yeah,
So Paul said, "Here's what we're going to do." He said, "You're not a method actor. You're a good solid actor. You may cry, you may not cry, but we have to match." So he said, "Bring over the makeup artist. She has a menthol blower, little glass tube with menthol in it, and she just
yeah,
gently puts it on your eyes and you'll tear up." So right before we went, we had to do it right then because of the
right.
sun.
Yeah.
She blows it across my eyes and we go ahead with the scene. Yeah.
Wow.
And he said, again, I was not a method actor, but he said, never be ashamed. If you need help accomplishing a shot, never be ashamed. You do whatever it takes for you to get there. And that's absolutely legitimate. That's so
Hmm.
sweet.
Yeah. Did that you take that advice moving forward
Yeah.
too? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I figured, I mean, if you're not going to take it and you're just going to struggle, that money gets wasted, people's time. It's,
Yeah. Of
in the
course
worst,
not.
they might replace you, so
Yes. And it's really silly. It's just silly. Say,
yeah,
"No, I need my process." Come on,
yeah,
get the shot. Let's move on.
right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Now, working with David again, House of Games, which is such an amazing movie. Uh, you know, Roger Ebert loved it. I think it was he named the best picture of 1987 or something like that. What was that experience like? Just him writing it and directing it, and just an amazing cast too.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wonderful. I loved working with Joey. Joey was an old friend
Yeah,
from the
he was great.
theater, et cetera, in Chicago and friend of David's. I loved working on it. And for me, it was a different kind of role. And it was interesting being directed by David. David, um, he really did understand actors. He understood what an actor's process
Mhm.
was, and he taught it even. And I liked the method that he taught. I liked it. So I used it in that movie. And, um, much like David, very direct, very simple. And it brought that particular character to life in a certain way. She was very um, bound up, tight, and discovering love.
Right.
And so that very, very lean approach worked with the way the movie was filmed, etc. And for a character that was just very tightly bound. Mhm.
Just love the last shot, how you kind of con that woman of getting her lighter, and that was so important for you, that the character to get the
Yeah,
lighter.
yeah,
It was just a wonderful way to wrap up the movie there.
yeah. Well, again, I mean, that was brilliant on David's part because you want
Yeah,
to do whatever you can do visually in a movie without words.
yeah,
And it accomplished that. It accomplished that. Yeah.
right. And then working with the great Ricky Jay is such a
Oh, Ricky. God
great.
bless Ricky.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
like learn any tricks from him or anything like
I
that?
had known Ricky before.
Oh,
I had
okay.
known Ricky. And he and I have been friends. He was friends with David. And
Right.
uh, I had had a birthday party years ago that we invited Ricky to perform at.
Okay.
There were a lot of people in the business. I think Sydney was there that night too. There were a lot of people in the business there, and he blew everybody's mind.
Right. Yeah.
I think I remember him disappearing a melon in a dining room.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Why do you feel that movie didn't get like a wider release
Well,
initially?
distribution of films like that is very, very difficult. Very
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah. It had its audience. It found an
Mm,
audience,
right.
but you know, and if you look at commercial movies, there are certain things that studios like and other things that they
Yeah.
don't understand. Whatever.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it got like a wider audience with the Criterion DVD release.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I discovered it. And
Yeah.
yeah, was absolutely blown away by it, by
Wonderful,
performance,
wonderful.
by everything. It was yeah, such a great, movie. And I wish I would have discovered it a little bit sooner, but you know.
Joey and I were great friends, and the day I had to shoot him, everybody was
Yeah.
nervous.
Right.
I said, "It's okay. I'm his friend."
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was fantastic in that
Yeah, was
movie.
he? It was great.
Yeah, he was
Great.
great. Yeah. Another movie I absolutely love, and I can tell you the backstory. I saw it in how movies have their initial run and then they go to like a different theater of like $2 movies. They're out of like the initial run, but they're shown in a different theater, The Arrival.
Oh
And
yeah. What a riot.
such a good movie. I think the timing was bad just because I think Independence Day came out like a month later. So it was a
Yeah.
smarter
Yeah.
alien movie that compared to Independence Day, which was like great, but it was just like a popcorn movie blowing things up, th this and that. And Charlie Sheen was actually believable
He
in
was
that
good.
role. He was really good. Yeah, he was good. Was that a fun movie to work on?
It was. It was crazy. It was just crazy. It was a lot
Right.
of fun. We did a shot. We would go on location we were in Mexico. We would go on
Yeah.
location at 4 in the morning to these places out in the boonies. So I'm out there. It's 5 a.m. There's no coffee on
Mm,
set. It's
mm,
like, and we're out in a field. And so we walk out of this field. The grass is like almost up to our chest.
mm,
We're starting to shoot, and we hear this sound. Everybody's like, "What's that? What's that?"
mm,
Cut. It's a, it's a Mexican woman, and she's very old, and she's hunched over, and she's got this
mm.
huge bunch of sticks on her back,
Right.
which are tied with a cloth around her waist so that she's got a cow with a cowbell, and she's pulling him along in the field. So she's crossing the shot. I
Oh,
remember seeing the days. There's Charlie Sheen and I trying to do this scene.
that's funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's great. I just love how like majority of the movie he has glasses on, and then I think he break, and then he's fine. I guess he's completely, cured of his, vision issues because he doesn't have, glasses the rest of the movie. So I always found that to be pretty funny. Yeah. But like you seem to play like a lot of scientists, you did that, you did I think Iceman and
Yeah.
Buffy and like and
Yeah.
Judges. Do you like those kind of like roles?
Well, I mean, I like any kind of roles.
Right.
I think if someone is articulate and somewhat intelligent, they tend
Yeah.
to have those kinds of roles.
Right.
I happen to be on television a lot too,
Yeah.
playing judges, lawyers,
Right.
lawyer, etc. Hmm.
Yeah. How much fun was being on Buffy for that one season?
Buffy was fun.
Yeah.
Buffy was fun. It was especially fun playing the bad guy.
Yeah. And then how much fun was it being reanimated and playing a corpse?
Oh, hey, there was a huge discussion in the makeup trailer as to whether I was a zombie or a reanimated corpse.
Okay.
Now, if you don't know the distinction, I'm very sorry for you, but they are different.
Right.
In case you encounter one, you have to be careful what you say.
Would you say? Yeah, exactly. Either way, go for the head, right? Yeah. Yeah. But was it true that you auditioned for the role of Captain Janeway on Star Trek Voyager?
I might very well have. I don't remember that though.
Okay.
I honestly don't. Where'd you read that?
I heard it on like a podcast like a couple years ago,
Oh,
Star Trek one. They were talking about who was being cast because
maybe.
I think Genevieve, I can't always mispronounce her name, but
Yeah,
Joel was
yeah,
she got cast and filmed
yeah.
for one day and then
Yeah.
she quit. But yeah, yeah. How do you feel like your life would have changed if you got that role? like just
That
being
would have
captain of
changed
a
a
star.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That would have been fun.
yeah, a lot of conventions, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. Law and Order too, right? Being a New York actor, I mean, you had to be on that show, right?
That was wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's wonderful. And those shows with the New York writers, I knew those New York writers because I came from a family of writers, and it was such an intelligent show.
yeah,
Um, yeah, wonderful, wonderful to be on. Yeah.
yeah.
And to play different characters, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Are you shocked? I mean, I shouldn't shocked because, lawyer shows are kind of, always around, but the franchise is still around after so
Yeah,
many years, like decades
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think, that show touched on a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Um, so it appeals to a lot of people. I know people who watch reruns all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's on so much. It's you can, you know, flip five channels and at least it's on three of them. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Can you watch yourself if you're flipping through channels and you see one of your
Yeah,
performances?
sometimes I'll take a look. I don't do it that often. There are a couple that I watched because there was one where I was shot. I had been shot by my ex-husband, and I worked with my voice coach, my wonderful voice coach, to speak the way a person would speak if they had been shot in the abdomen.
Okay.
Things like that were really interesting to do.
Yeah.
And of course, those actors were so wonderful to work with. So wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Do you enjoy playing it, like going through a death scene?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Right.
You
Well,
enjoy it. I mean, even if it's hard, you enjoy it.
yeah. What was your favorite one to go through out of all of them?
Um, Maybe that one
Okay.
where I was pleading with a judge to forgive my husband
Yeah.
um, for having shot me,
Okay.
which was an interesting one because the argument on my part was that I had become a judge and that I had really, in order to become a judge, I had had to work so hard and that my husband had felt abandoned by me. So it was about an issue that was dear to my heart. To become an actor, you have to abandon a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have pictures of me with my babies on the set, just it's hard.
Right.
And I came across a letter this year that I wrote to my kids. I had dropped them off in Los Angeles at what's it called? Like not a boxing class, a karate class. They were both
Karate.
very little, they had their little
Yeah.
uniforms.
Right.
And I was driving away and I got to the set of, I guess it was Law and Order, one of them on, maybe it was Peter Falk,
Oh, Columbo.
Columbo, maybe it was Columbo. And I sat down and I got to the studio and I wrote them a letter saying how heartbroken I was to leave the karate class with my two little kids
Mm.
and that this was what I was going to, and I was going to work, and that I hoped that in the future that they would understand and forgive the times that I had to do that, that I felt that the work that I was doing was also important
Mm.
and that I couldn't kind of pick and choose. I had to take when it comes.
Right.
I had to take it when it came. Um, so anyway,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. How often would you like take a role home with you? Like, could you like as soon as shooting is done, could you just leave that character there and then go
oh
home?
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. But the what would I say? The memory of it stays with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not the work, but the memory stays with you, the atmosphere and the feeling of it stays with you. Yeah.
Was there ever one that kind of lingered longer than others?
Maybe The Verdict.
Or- Yeah.
I loved Sidney Lumet a lot, and I loved Paul a
Yeah.
lot, and James Mason a lot.
Yeah.
And that whole, as Sidney said, repertory company, that New York company that I knew from the theater and I knew well. And um, again, Sidney had spoken to everyone who was in the courtroom, all the people who were in the courtroom. When he was shooting at the bench, he didn't even have to have the quote audience in
Yeah.
there that would have been in the courtroom.
Right.
He paid to have them there for us.
Mm.
so that we would feel the pressure. And when I walked
Yeah.
into that courtroom, I thought, oh boy, I
Wow.
hope I never have to be in a real courtroom. This is, I mean, my heart is pounding.
Right.
And when I came to shoot, I said to him, I said, my heart is racing.
Wow.
And he put his hand on my hand. He said, he always called us by our character name. He said, Caitlin, just talk, just talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Because and also the way you left the courtroom too. It's like you basically just ran out of it.
I ran, I
Yeah,
ran.
that was really powerful too. That definitely added to the scene.
I was 7 months pregnant
Oh wow.
doing that. I
Yeah.
was 7 months pregnant.
Right.
I was nervous coming up to it. And I remember the day before, I was in Little Italy, and I'd been really good during my pregnancy as to what I'd been eating and everything. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, what the heck, treat myself. So I went and I had an espresso and a huge piece of chocolate cake. And I left the little cafe and my heart was
Yeah.
racing. I'm going to call my mother from a payphone. Remember
Yeah.
those? And I said, I think I've killed the baby. She had to calm me down.
Right. Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah. Just being like the nature of that film was Paul still a prankster on set?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He was so much fun. He
Right,
was so
yeah.
much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
But that was a very serious film, so it
Yeah.
wasn't like other films where, you know, yeah.
Right. It wasn't like Slapshot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But Lindsay, and thank you so much for doing this today. I know you're under the weather.
Oh,
I don't want to take up too much of your time.
thank you too. Thank you
I
too.
I really hope I see you again on stage or the screen because
Your mouth to
you're
God's ear.
super talented and you deserve to be on there. So,
Thank you so much. It's a delight to talk to you.
and a special thanks to Lindsay for joining me today. And if you haven't seen House of Games, check it out. It is really, really good. And if you haven't seen The Arrival, starring Charlie Sheen, it is sneaky good. It just unfortunately came out the same year as Independence Day. And if you have a guest suggestion, you can hit me up on Twitter at TheFirstNoah19 or like the page Roving My Youth on Facebook. And go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Show's on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, basically wherever you can find a podcast. New episode comes out every week. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then.